My name is Erica Lorraine Spencer, and I remain subject to state surveillance and terrorism by the state of California that is operating a malicious targeting system, which is referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices. And it is in violation of federal stalking statute 18 U.S.C. sections 2261A subsections 1 and 2. My website and podcast serve the public good by publishing evidence of the public entity's ceaseless engagement in a pattern of conduct intended to stalk and monitor via communication devices, surveil, harass, and terrorize an American citizen in concert with the people of the state of California. Documentation serves the lawful purposes of wide exposure, federal prosecution, and influencing federal legislation with policies specifically designed to punish, dismantle, and disincentivize an unprecedented targeting system by a public entity that acts in concert with the people of the state in order to criminally place under surveillance and terrorize an American citizen, which is a matter of public corruption in the state of California. Notice: intellectual property theft is particularly egregious and equally unlawful where the sole inventor and creator of the intellectual property is the targeted individual. Erica Lorraine Spencer, subject to the unconstitutional and inhumane government system of gang stalking, otherwise referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices, because of which the intellectual property created by the targeted individual, who is, in fact, Erica Lorraine Spencer, as the intellectual property also proves, serves to establish via evidence and expose the existence of criminal surveillance and thus an inherent threat posed by the U.S. government and the civilian population sharing engagement in the unlawful system. Such evidence that includes all of the content created by Erica Lorraine Spencer, images, videos, audio, etc., belongs solely and entirely to Erica Lorraine Spencer only and is necessarily published online in order to protect her life, safety, and liberty as the targeted individual, who is also the intellectual property owner, no less protected from theft procured through targeting by a public entity. Theft of any intellectual property belonging to Erica Lorraine Spencer, which is necessarily committed while she, being both creator and inventor, remains oppressed by the public entity via criminal surveillance, is a criminal and inhumane means of infringement under all circumstances and not protected nor enforceable pursuant to any invalid or fraudulent acts of copyright, trademarks, patents, etc., including as it pertains to any ideas associated with or generated from the intellectual property or the intellectual property owner, Erica Lorraine Spencer, whether creative, business, or otherwise, nor does the intellectual property owner consent to any such means of infringement and theft. Erica Lorraine Spencer here. The following is an audio version of video evidence that is captured for purposes of mass distribution, which is why I am capturing it and sharing it on the podcast for evidentiary purposes and also to reveal the wealth of documentation that extends beyond what it is that I document on podcasts. Much of the video and images will be published onto the YouTube channel, the P.O.C, and it is also shared on the Google Drive. Again, this is for purposes of revealing what I remain subject to, which is federal group stalking and monitoring. It is a demonic system of state surveillance that the government is practicing in concert with the people of the state, and it should be known and well understood that for the government to engage in federal group stalking and monitoring, this is a crime that is committed with a criminal purpose to threaten the life of an American citizen. This is to conspire to murder and or permanently kidnap an American citizen while engaging in a perpetual sex offense in concert with the people of the state.
Ontario police, again, calling themselves making a statement, gang stalking at 7-Eleven. This is light activity, relative positioning. Alright, this is P.O.C. And they pull up as soon as I arrive at the 7-Eleven. License 1680790. Talking with the people of the state. Let me go ahead and get this real quick. This is stalking. This isn't shopping, coincidental presence. This is shopping. This is stalking, excuse me. License 16807, I know, vehicle 1116.
Erica, what's up?
Demons that are engaged in audible activity and doing so coincidentally knowing my name. License 1675813, 1061. These demons are taken very lightly what's going to be federal prison. This is P.O.C. It is currently, by the way, these are the demons stalking by helicopter, okay? Stalking, flying over me, stalking me everywhere in the city with helicopter, and then engaging with cheesy and greedy while they're stalking at the grocery store. This is conspicuous stalking, okay? License plate 1644204. This is vehicle 1067, and it's on surveillance cameras. The entity is doing so in the specific environment. All right, this is my shadows that are appearing. They're an engineer light gang stalking with the people of the state, and they do so as I publish the documentation. They're aware of the evidence. They come and engage in what is conspicuous stalking right in your face. This is P.O.C. This is the entity engaged in what is repeated kidnappings, engaged in what are harassment, talking about fallacious charges like a trespass when there's no such trespass. The entity that's engaging in what is making up charges when they are engaged in kidnapping, having no authority under the law, and then following to the market. And 7-Eleven is harassing with them. This is P.O.C. This is Owens, right? He's going to prison. Anybody else want to give your name? What's your name? What's your name? In Barton? What is your name? What is your name? Yeah, I will, as soon as I get his name. What is your name?
Huh?
What is your name? You're here monitoring. Don't act like you don't hear me. Bob? Bob? Okay, what's your badge number, Bob? This is obstruction if you're lying about your identity while you're monitoring. Badge number 21442. He's stating his name is Bob. His name is Bob.
Are you desirous of
This is a means of what is criminal summoning. And yeah, I'm going. You're monitoring with the Ontario police, right? While you want me in their presence to leave? This is not anybody, this is the police.
Yeah, but we don't allow anybody
To protect them while they're gang stalking me. Yeah, this is P.O.C. Anyway, you're looking for a trespass charge again? Because you didn't quite have that last time you were engaged in criminal summoning, Owens.
Do you want her removed from the property? Are you desirous of prosecution? You want her to go to jail?
This is all audible activity. This is a threat.
The store clerk has told you to leave twice. You're now trespassing.
While you're here.
You can either leave the business or you're going to
This is P.O.C. This is 20816, right, Owens?
20816.
Okay. With, what is your partner? Hazelwood? You guys don't know the definition of trespassing? That's P.O.C. The entity is engaged in this, and I want to be clear, doing so with the entity that is engaging in what is a means of what is harassment. Okay? He's monitoring with the Ontario police and doing so while I'm documenting them. This is federal prison as well. He's not in a uniform and he's gang stalking. These are the demons that engage in that together, and I've documented all three of them engaging in that. Engaging in what is gang, well, not Barton, but this demon that's talking about, his name is Bob, and this is Owens engaging in the P.O.C. And I want to be clear, this is an entity that's sharing. He's engaged in gang stalking with the Ontario police by helicopter before and engaging in what is harassment right now while they come in, and I'm documenting, enforcing my rights while they're all monitoring inside a 7-Eleven, which is not a private property. They're engaging in surveillance, and they're doing so pursuant to what is a means to harass me. And he's stating, do you want me to, I'm going to go ahead and get her for trespassing? They're monitoring. Owens is going to federal prison. This is federal prison. This is P.O.C. While they're arriving, engaging what is monitoring me. This is exactly, and I also want to be clear, Jason Isaac Fields is going to federal prison. This is 636 North, documenting the fake son right here at this venue as well. The entity engaging what is molestation activity. These are demons who are pacing, and this is the entity that's engaging in what is stalking. Yes.
Okay, the gas station attendant?
He's not a gas station. This is P.O.C.
On the property.
You're engaged in monitoring.
City property.
You're engaged in monitoring.
Go to city property, please.
City property, you mean on the sidewalk?
The sidewalk. Yep, you just can't be in the parking lot. This is his private property. He doesn't want you.
This is not private property. They're monitoring.
Okay.
Owens, you're going to federal prison. I hope you're having fun. You and your buddy Barton, you're going to prison. Just so that you know, he's an ignoramus. He doesn't even know what a trespass is while he's using words that he doesn't know the definition of. And you arrived to engage in harassment? Are you having fun? Because you're going to prison. Does this make you feel like you're doing something? Your partner Jason Nathan's going to prison as well. This is where the entity is gang stalking by the Ontario International Airport, gang stalking by helicopter at this venue, and this is the threat to engage in kidnapping. Look at these impossible light activity. They're monitoring. And this makes them feel like they're powerful while they threaten kidnapping while they're gang stalking. And coming to make a purchase at the 7-Eleven that's engaged in what is federal group stalking and monitoring with them. This is P.O.C. Barton and Owens. This is you're going to arrest me, right, if I stay on the parking lot? That was a threat to engage in kidnapping? Is that what that was? Is that what that's supposed to be? That's a threat to engage in kidnapping, right?
I'm not kidnapping you.
No, that's a kidnapping. You're monitoring, and you just made a threat. I want to get that on the record. Because you feel like you're doing something right now. You're monitoring with this demon as well. You're monitoring. That's an ongoing threat to engage in kidnapping. You engage in that repeatedly, you're going to prison. You're going to federal prison. You want to know what the definition is? Because you don't know what trespassing is. You're engaged in federal stalking. You and all these puppets. That's P.O.C. That's another threat to engage in kidnapping. You're going to federal prison. And tell your buddy, Hazelwood, he's going to prison as well. So is C. Torres and L. Martinez, Alex Estrada, A. Casada, Nathan Morgan, B. Hook. They're all going to federal prison. For your gang stalking like you are every day in a helicopter. Follow me around the city, and then you follow to 7-Eleven. That's how pathetic you are. You're going to prison. Have fun. Because you're monitoring to my voice right now. You're monitoring at Engineer Light. You're demons that are monitoring as a whole agency. That's P.O.C. This is 7-Eleven engaging in what is harassment. This is 7-Eleven engaging in federal stalking with the people of the state. That's what this demon represents, is light activity on the truck, and the entities following the 7-Eleven while they're engaging. And this is supposed to be what is a threat to engage in harassment while I'm documenting 7-Eleven gang stalking. That's what this is. This is P.O.C. This is 636 North Vine Avenue, engaged in kidnapping with the same agency on January 13, 2020. Jason Knight and Lester Keys and Melnick that are going to federal prison as well. And now they're just chilling in the parking lot because the entity is engaged in what is gang stalking. This is harassment. That's why they're just chilling in the parking lot. Just want to be clear on that. This is Owens that doesn't know the definition of trespassing, having a good old time, because this is the entity that thinks that they're engaged in what is a form of retaliation. They listen to my documentation. They're hostile to it. They're intimidated by it. And they come wearing badges, exercising authority, and it's a threat to engage in kidnapping, and that's why they're going to federal prison. This is domestic terrorism, and it's also a threat by it's also a threat by 7-Eleven. Okay, that's people the state are gang stalking with. Impossible light activity. You see the previous video of them flying over my head. Okay, the entity doing so. It's currently 12:14 p.m. The entity is stalking by helicopter, flying over me at F Street in Euclid on a daily basis. Gang stalking by helicopter at the bus stop at Vineyard. Gang stalking by helicopter at the Ontario Town Square. Gang stalking by helicopter when I am sitting at what is F Street tonight, and the entity is engaged in what is gang stalking by helicopter when I'm at the Starbucks last night. I'm documenting the ongoing P.O.C. Mike Lorenz is the one that's accountable for this. They're all done with law enforcement. This is not law enforcement. This is stalking, and it's also harassment. And these are the entity that acts with impunity. This is a demonic spirit. This is demon possession, and it's corruption at its finest. Okay, it is P.O.C. Those demons are represented by those 3 vehicles, and they're engaged in criminal activity on the cameras of 7-Eleven, which is also going to be prosecuted. This is P.O.C. It's currently 12:14 a.m. Capturing what is the specific environment. For example, here's my shadow back here. This is where, again, the demons, Owens, the demons of the Ontario Police Department stalking by helicopter, the demons who are the people of the state gang stalking on an ongoing basis, the entity doing so at 636 North Vine Avenue, where this is impossible light activity, speaking to the entity that is indeed engaged in surveillance and calling itself a police department, monitoring with the people, side of the venue. I'm capturing video right now of what is impossible light activity, where JV Towing is gang stalking in the past with the Ontario Police, and they're all engaged in just parlaying in the parking lot while they're engaged in gang stalking. License 00043U1, and the entity that is gang stalking pursuant to that impossible light activity, the evidence of what is surveillance, the engineered environment where presence and activity is accomplishing what is surveillance accomplished in relevant, because these are demons that are engaging what is surveillance in that impossible light activity, and they're also demon possessed. The entity that's engaging in that specific environment is engaged in what is stalking, conspicuous stalking, and they're also engaged in that while the entity is stalking by helicopter at the same time. This is the entity that is, again, Hazel and Owens are acting with malice with the 2 demon-possessed gang stalkers, stating that I was trespassing on their business when they knew very well that I wasn't trespassing. They're engaged in surveillance together. This is the Ontario International Airport, hovering forever, perpetually through the city, while they're monitoring with the Ontario Police. The entity is engaging in when you're looking at the impossible light activity, my upright shadow on the wall on the opposite side in the dark, while you're looking at what is the conspicuous stalking by the state, the entity stalking by helicopter. You're looking at the conspicuous stalking by the state, and when you're engaging in the P.O.C. and you're threatening threatening kidnapping, which is what Owens and Barton and this demon misrepresenting his identity, which is an additional federal charge, and this demon that's in civilian clothing gang stalking with the Ontario police as well. The entity finding it humorous while they're engaging in domestic terrorism and also doing so with the people of the state. That's what this Latino male is engaging in, using his truck as a means of light activity while the demons are monitoring, and they're doing so in that specific environment. The entity stalking by commercial plane, the entity stalking by helicopter, and the ongoing specific environment remains. This is also where the same agency, through Jason Knighton, Lester Keys, and Melnick, engaged in what is kidnapping with this same venue, 7-Eleven at 636 North Vine Avenue. The entity is engaging in what is obstruction of justice while you're both gang stalking, and then while you're engaged in an orchestrated method of targeting me, then stating that you want the same gang stalkers that you're targeting with to remove me from the property, which is a threat to engage in kidnapping when they don't have authority in their gang stalking. Let's just be clear. What I'm referring to with the trespass that Owens can't define under the law, and it's also malicious, those gang stalkers, those females adjacent to 7-Eleven lying about trespassing, and Owens knows that they're lying. So does this demon, this impotent and intellectually inferior demon, Hazelwood, who is engaged in what is lying about stating that I was trespassing so that they can be in my presence just like they are now stalking. Okay? That was malice, and this is malice now, and they're engaged in gang stalking. That was relevant to what happened at 507 North Euclid Avenue, where they're monitoring on my devices, and this is an entity engaging in that with the intent to harass and terrorize. And this is basically because they're embarrassed on the internet, so they're engaging what is conspicuous stalking, and this is exactly what is going to be the disbanding of the Ontario police. Okay? This is P.O.C. This is 7-Eleven that is sharing in that ongoing threat. Okay? As I arrive, engaging in what is removing me as you're enforcing your rights and documenting the police who are indeed stalking. The ongoing pattern of the entity stalking by helicopter is an unlawful threat, and that agency engaged in that. And they arrive, and now they're chilling in the parking lot because this is an entity that's engaging what is a threat to engage in kidnapping. If I re-enter the venue, that's the implied threat behind that. This is an entity that is indeed engaged in monitoring. Okay, this is, let me show you the specific environment with regard to the impossible light activity. Multiple shadows on the ground at different various of concentration. Well, you're looking at the engineer light. That's not your shadow. And also my shadow's in front of me when I'm facing the light. The entity's engaging what is gang stalking. This is, again, the entity that I'm documenting by license plate, and they're doing so with 7-Eleven, who's engaging in a malicious iteration of the P.O.C., and it's always gang stalking, including with the people of the state inside of the store, psychopathic pacing, molestation with impossible light, documented under the fake sun, when the entity is maintaining that specific environment at, for example, Economy Inn, where that entity is stalking me, and this is the entity that's maintaining this engineer light. So I just want to show the specific environment where the entity is engaged in gang stalking, and you're engaged in what is and that is relevant to also deportation of the immigrants that are working and managing this 7-Eleven at 636, and the demon-possessed and enemies of the United States, the Ontario police, engaging in domestic terrorism with this level of impunity and malice. Doing so, that's, again, punctuating the threat. Stalking by helicopter, the entity taking it as a joke while they're engaging in this conduct, and this is exactly what's going to be submitted in federal court. The hallmark of stalking by helicopter, the specific environment. This is my enlarged shadow. It's taller than I am. It's at a distance. You can see how far away I am, and I am standing in this is dark over there. There's a light over here, and this is a light right here. That's not going to create a shadow back there. There's nothing back here. That's not going to cause your shadow to shoot in front of you. This is an engineered environment where the entity is stalking by helicopter, stalking in that specific environment by commercial planes. At this point, why hasn't the entity already engaged in what is elevating to a point to where you're still not looking at the same planes hovering in the sky throughout the city of Ontario? The entity doing so while they're also conspicuously stalking, and it's relevant to what I'm publishing on the internet. The entity hostile to what is somebody authoritatively letting you know that you are going to prison, and they are, and they're doing so while they're engaging in what is conspicuous stalking. That's an unlawful threat. And they're even doing so by just hanging around at the parking lot, speaking to what is an unlawful threat, taking it as a light and in jest while they're engaging in what is domestic terrorism and furtherance of murder, doing so in the specific environment with the entity stalking by helicopter. All of that pattern of conduct remains underway while they're engaging in that, and it's directly relevant to that entirety of that pattern of conduct. You're not on private property when you're engaged in surveillance, and you're gang stalking with the police. You don't have any right to engage. This is what the entity's doing with Starbucks while they're engaged in what is a kidnapping, exercising authority under the law. And Owens, the entity, the Ontario police, don't even know the law while they're engaged in what is exercising fictitious authority under it as gang stalkers. They literally are stalking, following to this 7-Eleven to then engage in what is harassment with them by removal from the request for me to remove myself while I'm documenting 7-Eleven itself gang stalking me, threatening my life with the Ontario Police Department. Understand, this is the entity engaging in what is exploitation, and it is relevant to what is I.I.S, I'm going to be reporting, this is a report to ICE right now, but I'm going to be reporting, again, this is the entity that's engaging in what is un-American conduct, targeting with immigrants in the United States, doing so with impunity, targeting American citizens with immigrants that are not given the privilege to engage in what is terrorism with that terrorist organization, and they're doing so with the intent to obstruct justice, to harass and terrorize. And that's the entity that's doing so with that ongoing documented level of impunity, okay? That's the entity gang stalking with immigrants who are worthy of deportation, doing so with the Ontario Police Department, targeting me and then claiming that you want me removed while you're gang stalking me, and on top of that, it's an immigrant, okay? I want to be clear on that. This is terrorism in the United States, and that's exactly why they're being deported. It is currently 12:24 a.m. on what is it's now Tuesday, September 23rd. 2025. This is the entity that's threatening my life and safety. This is what American citizens are subject to, and this is exactly why you're going to prosecute in the ways in which I have prescribed. The entity is engaging in this, and this is in the specific environment. Your shadow's not showing up in front of you at a wall at a distance in the dark. The entity is engaged in a pattern of stalking by helicopter and planes. The entity is engaged in a documented kidnapping at this same venue. The entity is engaged in what is surveillance while claiming it's private property, and doing so while you don't have any authority under the law to engage in any sort of arrest, which is a threat to engage in kidnapping, while you can't even properly recite or apply the law to the facts, while you're engaged in stalking and conspicuously with that entity because you're mad about what's being published on the internet, and that's exactly what's going to happen. They're all going, this gang of demons right here that was kicking it in the parking lot, they're all going to prison, and the immigrants are being deported, okay? This is P.O.C. It is currently, again, 12:25 a.m. P.O.C.
All right, it is currently Tuesday, September 23rd, 2025. It's 12:15 a.m. And the video that you're listening to is video evidence of the same pattern of conduct. The agency, the terrorist organization that is under the dangerous and corrupt leadership of Mike LORENZ, engaged in following me to the 7-Eleven. And following is proven through the maintenance of that specific environment, which remains present. This is an entity that's engaging what is stalking as a whole agency, masquerading as a police department. And the demons are engaged in what is gang stalking at 636 North Vine Avenue, a documented kidnapper with the same agency in 2020 with Jason Knighton and Lester Keys in concert with the Ontario International Airport. And the entity is engaging in what is relevant to my documentation. These are demons that are engaging in what is harassment while they are hostile to the documentation that they are keeping under surveillance. So engaging what is following me, stalk, because all the entity is doing is stalking. So you're engaged in what is stalking at the 7-Eleven, arriving after I enter into the venue, engaged in what is monitoring, which I'm going to document, and 7-Eleven that is monitoring with them is engaged in what is then telling me that I can't document 7-Eleven that's gang stalking in concert with that agency, claiming that it's private property when they're engaged in surveillance. Number one, that's the malice. And number two, the entity is engaging in what is also an iteration of criminal summoning. Oh, now you don't want me to document and you want me to leave your quote unquote private property. And then the police that are gang stalking with them, oh, well, this is the basis to then engage in what? Kidnapping, exclusion from the property where you're engaged in criminal activity together. I want to be clear, this is the entity that's engaged in that pattern of conduct, and I'm currently capturing what is the specific environment. For example, here's my shadow back here. This is where, again, the demons Owens, the demons of the Ontario Police Department stalking by helicopter, the demons who are the people of the state gang stalking on an ongoing basis, the entity doing so at 636 North Vine Avenue where this is impossible light activity. Speaking to the entity that is indeed engaged in surveillance and calling itself a police department, monitoring with the people inside of the venue. I'm capturing video right now of what is impossible light activity where JV Towing is gang stalking in the path with the Ontario Police, and they're all engaged in just parlaying in the parking lot while they're engaged in gang stalking. License 00043U1, and the entity that is gang stalking pursuant to that impossible light activity, the evidence of what is surveillance, the engineered environment where presence and activity is accomplishing what is surveillance accomplished in relevant position. These are demons that are engaging in what is surveillance in that impossible light activity, and they're also demon possessed. The entity that's engaging in that specific environment is engaged in what is stalking, conspicuous stalking, and they're also engaged in that while the entity is stalking by helicopter at the same time. This is the entity that is, again, Hazel and Owens are acting with malice with the two demon-possessed gang stalkers stating that I was trespassing on their business when they knew very well that I wasn't trespassing. They're engaged in surveillance together. This is the Ontario International Airport, hovering forever, perpetually through the city, while they're monitoring with the Ontario Police. The entity is engaging in when you're looking at the impossible light activity, my upright shadow on the wall on the opposite side in the dark, while you're looking at what are the conspicuous stalking by the state, the entity stalking by helicopter. You're looking at the conspicuous stalking by the state, and when you're engaged in the P.O.C. and you're threatening kidnapping, which is what
what Owens and Barton and this demon misrepresenting his identity, which is an additional federal charge, and this demon that's in civilian clothing gang stalking with the Ontario police as well. The entity finding it humorous while they're engaging in domestic terrorism and also doing so with the people of the state. That's what this Latino male is engaging in, using his truck as a means of light activity while the demons are monitoring, and they're doing so in that specific environment. The entity stalking by commercial plane, the entity stalking by helicopter, and the ongoing specific environment remains. This is also where this same agency, through Jason Knighton, Lester Keys, and Melnick, engaged in what is kidnapping with this same venue, 7-Eleven at 636 North Vine Avenue. The entity is engaging in what is obstruction of justice while you're both gang stalking, and then while you're engaging in an orchestrated method of targeting me, then stating that you want the same gang stalkers that you're targeting with to remove me from the property, which is a threat to engage in kidnapping when they don't have authority in their gang stalking. Let's just be clear. What I'm referring to with the trespass that Owens can't define under the law, and it's also malicious, those gang stalkers, those females adjacent to 7-Eleven, lying about trespassing, and Owens knows that they're lying. So does this demon, this impotent and intellectually inferior demon, Hazelwood, who is engaged in what is lying about stating that I was trespassing so that they can be in my presence just like they are now stalking. Okay, that was malice, and this is malice now, and they're engaged in gang stalking. That was relevant to what happened at 507 North Euclid Avenue, where they're monitoring on my devices, and this is an entity engaging in that with the intent to harass and terrorize. And this is basically because they're embarrassed on the internet, so they're engaging in what is conspicuous stalking, and this is exactly what is going to be the disbanding of the Ontario Police. Okay, this is P.O.C. This is 7-Eleven that is sharing in that ongoing threat. Okay, as I arrive, engaging in what is removing me as you're enforcing your rights and documenting the police who are indeed stalking. The ongoing pattern of the entity stalking by helicopter is an unlawful threat, and that agency engaged in that. And they arrive, and now they're chilling in the parking lot because this is an entity that's engaging in what is a threat to engage in kidnapping if I re-enter the venue. That's the implied threat behind that. This is an entity that is indeed engaged in monitoring. Okay, this is, let me show you again the specific environment. The entity is maintaining the specific environment with regard to the impossible light activity. Multiple shadows on the ground at different varies of concentration. Well, you're looking at the engineer light. That's not your shadow. And also my shadow's in front of me when I'm facing the light. The entity's engaging what is gang stalking. This is, again, the entity that I'm documenting by license plate, and they're doing so with 7-Eleven, who's engaging in a malicious iteration of the P.O.C. and is always gang stalking, including with the people of the state inside of the store, psychopathic pacing, molestation with impossible light, documented under the fake sun when the entity is maintaining that specific environment at, for example, Economy Inn, where that entity is stalking me, and this is the entity that's maintaining this engineer light. So I just want to show the specific environment where the entity is engaged in gang stalking, and you're engaged in what is obstruction of justice, and that is relevant to also deportation of the immigrants that are working and managing this 7-Eleven at 636, and the demon-possessed and enemies of the United States, the Ontario Police, engaging in domestic terrorism with this level of impunity and malice. Doing so, that's, again, punctuating the threat. Stalking by helicopter, the entity taking it as a joke while they're engaging in this conduct, and this is exactly what's going to be submitted in federal court. The hallmark is stalking by helicopter, the specific environment. This is my enlarged shadow. It's taller than I am. It's at a distance. Let me zoom out again so you can see how far away I am. And I am standing in the, this is dark over there. There's a light over here, and this is a light right here. That's not going to create a shadow back there. There's nothing back here. That's not going to cause your shadow to shoot in front of you. This is an engineered environment where the entity is stalking by helicopter, stalking in that specific environment by commercial planes. At this point, why hasn't the entity already engaged in what is elevating to a point to where you're still not looking at the same planes hovering in the sky throughout the city of Ontario? The entity doing so while they're also conspicuously stalking, and it's relevant to what I'm publishing on the internet. The entity hostile to what is somebody authoritatively letting you know that you are going to prison, and they are, and they're doing so while they're engaging in what is conspicuous stalking. That's an unlawful threat. And they're even doing so by just hanging around at the parking lot, speaking to what is an unlawful threat, taking it as a light joke and in jest while they're engaging in what is domestic terrorism and furtherance of murder, doing so in the specific environment with the entity stalking by helicopter. All of that pattern of conduct remains underway while they're engaging in that, and it's directly relevant to that entirety of that pattern of conduct. You're not on private property when you're engaged in surveillance, and you're gang stalking with the police. You don't have any right to engage. This is what the entity's doing with Starbucks while they're engaged in what is a kidnapping, exercising authority under the law. And Owens, the entity, the Ontario Police, don't even know the law while they're engaged in what is exercising fictitious authority under it as gang stalkers. They literally are stalking, following to this 7-Eleven to then engaging in what is harassment with them by removal from the request for me to remove myself while I'm documenting 7-Eleven itself gang stalking me, threatening my life with the Ontario Police Department. Understand this is the entity engaging in what is exploitation, and it is relevant to what is I.I.S. I'm going to be reporting, this is a report to ICE right now, but I'm going to be reporting, again, this is the entity that's engaging in what is un-American conduct, targeting with immigrants in the United States, doing so with impunity, targeting American citizens with immigrants that are not given the privilege to engage in what is terrorism with that terrorist organization, and they're doing so with the intent to obstruct justice, to harass and terrorize. And that's the entity that's doing so with that ongoing documented level of impunity, okay? That's the entity gang stalking with immigrants who are worthy of deportation, doing so with the Ontario Police Department, targeting me and then claiming that you want me removed while you're gang stalking me. And on top of that, it's an immigrant. Okay, I want to be clear on that. This is terrorism in the United States, and that's exactly why they're being deported. It is currently 12:24 a.m. on what is it's now Tuesday, September 23rd, 2025. This is the entity that's threatening my life and safety. This is what American citizens are subject to, and this is exactly why you're going to prosecute in the ways in which I have prescribed. The entity is engaging in this, and this is in the specific environment. Your shadow's not showing up in front of you at a wall at a distance in the dark. The entity is engaged in a pattern of stalking by helicopter and planes. The entity is engaged in a documented kidnapping at this same venue. The entity is engaged in what is surveillance while claiming it's private property, and doing so while you don't have any authority under the law to engage in any sort of arrest, which is a threat to engage in kidnapping. While you can't even properly recite or apply the law to the facts. While you're engaged in stalking and conspicuously with that entity because you're mad about what's being published on the internet, and that's exactly what's going to happen. They're all going, this gang of demons right here that was kicking it in the parking lot, they're all going to prison, and the immigrants are being deported, okay? This is P.O.C. It is currently, again, 12:25 a.m. P.O.C. All right, I want to make sure that I document that. That was planned. So I just want to be clear on that. The entity planned that. Following me with regard to where they're going, conspicuously stalking, the entity is always anticipating that I'm going to document. Okay, so that's reasonably anticipated, and whether they anticipated it or not, you are going to document because the entity is trying to murder you, trying to defame you, trying to accuse you of crimes that you didn't commit, having a pattern of kidnapping and making up information as to why they are kidnapping under all circumstances. And then you have a third party that's gang stalking with them, stating that they're going to, that they would like you to leave. And guess what? Guess who's going to have you removed forcibly from the property? The gang stalking police department. Gang stalking by plane, helicopter, impossible light activity with the people of the state, and these are immigrants engaging in that. 7-Eleven is engaged in what is federal group stalking and monitoring, and they have a pattern of maintaining immigrants that are managing this particular store. That's relevant to deportation, and I will be reporting them to ICE. All right, this is P.O.C. That's an unlawful threat to my life that they're posing in real time with the gang stalkers of the Ontario Police Department. This is P.O.C. License 8ZNA689. Hello. Yeah, am I still excluded from the property?
No, but like you can't shoot somebody.
You said what?
Like
They're threatening my safety and my life. So you're interfering with my ability to protect myself from
like
while they're in the store.
Like in the parking you can shoot, but inside you can't.
They weren't in the parking lot. They followed me into the store. Yeah, they followed me into the store.
Oh, but like they are coming in the daily time this time. That's why.
No, I don't know about that, but when I'm here, they follow me into your store, and that's a threat, and I'm going to document. Okay. Do you understand how threatening that is for the police to be following you around?
Yeah, what happened today?
Nothing today. What happened was what I was capturing on video, and I got it on video. That's fine.
Yeah,
I'm just
okay.
stating.
No, don't worry. Actually, my boss is stopped, so that's why I have to say it like one time.
Your boss is what?
Like my boss is.
Is that other guy your boss, or I thought you were his boss?
No, my sister is my boss.
Oh, okay.
So actually, so what he was told to us. You can't not allow somebody to
record in the store. Yeah, but I'm
store.
not going around like recording. Ooh, who are you? That was the police.
That's why I'm understanding.
You see, they wear guns on their person, and they're threatening to kidnap me when I'm not breaking the law. And then you're telling them, I come here, I shop here all the time. Yeah. I don't disrupt you.
Yeah, because they also came in that time because I don't know.
But it's I know you're not there. You're not there. They are engaged in harassing me regularly. He's stating my name like we're on a first name basis, and I'm not a criminal. That's because he's regularly engaged in following me around. It represents that whole agency.
Yeah, that's
so I'm not going to define all that to you.
It's okay.
But all I'm stating is that there is a reason why I was capturing that. And for me to be in your store subject to that threat, you're adding to that threat. That was a threat to my safety. And then you're telling me, like, they're going to arrest me because you want me to leave the store while I'm protecting myself.
No, I don't say you leave the store.
That's what he was getting into. He was feeding it. Oh, do you want me? You remember what he was saying? Oh, so are you saying that
that's
you want me to?
That's why I say I don't want to arrest him. You listen?
I didn't.
They say you want to arrest him, but I say I don't want to arrest him, but I don't allow anybody to shoot in the store. I say only this one. And that's, it's my job. They tell to me, and so I have to follow these all things.
I think you guys should be aware of when the police, because that's different. It's different from your perspective. I'll say it's different from another customer versus the police.
Because, like,
Anyway, let me close your door.
They came
Sorry.
like a daily. Yeah, don't worry.
But
They came like a daily.
uh huh.
So if you like came first time, then I will like I asked you
So I've been at your store before, and that same agency
to yeah.
following me around by helicopters, including at this store. Your other part, I haven't seen him in a while, but he was here when.
Yeah, like he came like similarly like after 12 between the two, sometime at the 3.
Yeah, that's
the
fine.
same all officers.
He doesn't have to be around
Yeah,
everywhere
that's
but
why
I'm
I'm
at. But I'm just stating he's engaged. They are engaged in what is a pattern, and I have to document that to protect myself.
Yeah, that's
so
okay.
I understand if you're
Yeah, I
saying
don't
you
have
didn't
an
tell
issue
him
with you, but like I don't allow to somebody, anybody.
to record in your store. I get it.
Yeah.
All I'm stating
that's
is.
the only my concern is this.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. I'm just gonna go ahead and get this coconut water.
Yeah,
That's it. Do
that's
you know what
why-
happened to the coconut water? What happened?
I put
You put it back? Okay.
Yeah,
All right, that's all P.O.C. This is a lawful threat. They're engaged in monitoring together. But I just wanted to find out what is he's trying to say that you can replay the tape. It actually doesn't matter whether he's I don't want you to arrest at all. The demon possessed the agency, they can take it upon themselves to do that upon even making up what was told to them. So that's a part of the inherent threat of gang stalking as a corrupt police department. But nonetheless, I'm only talking to him regarding whether he's excluded me from this, because I want to get the details of this level of harassment. That's what that was about right there. But to be honest with you, 1 second. That's an unlawful threat to your life and safety, both by 7-Eleven, the employees in 7-Eleven, and the entity. And what you're going to pay attention to on that tape, how they're just parlaying in the parking lot, that's the entity that they feel like they accomplished something. All right, they feel like they made a statement, and that's not a statement. That's an ego. That's a spirit. That's engaged in what is surveillance, and is always engaged. This is not a competition. It's a prosecution. Okay, and that's what the entity is engaged in. That was some sort of failed effort. What it was a documented act of targeting and harassment, where the entity is engaged in what is also a threat is your incompetence, where you don't know what a trespass is, and also there's no trespass when you are engaged in criminal conduct, and I am documenting it. And that's exactly why there will also be legislation dealing with that. Obstruction of justice. They're going to federal prison for that. That's a threat in and of its face. You're documenting, you're stalking them, and then you're going to tell, you have to leave now because you can't document in here. You're documenting. While you're stalking, you can't document me stalking you. That's what the government is stating. Even through 7-Eleven. Okay, they're a third party. They're not a private party. This is P.O.C. This is P.O.C. And there's no talking down what he just engaged in, but I am dealing with third parties. I'm dealing with malice, and I'm also going to get what he stated because I'm using everything against them. But there's no talking that threat down. Okay, understand that the ordinary target individual is dealing with a lot. I'm prosecuting it, and I'm showing all angles of it. But the ordinary target individual is being bullied by just in that sort of manner in the same way. Okay, and they're not documenting it, and they even suffer even worse. You could literally be kidnapped for much less. The entity has engaged in that. Literally, Jason 910 standing on what he referred to as public property. And doing so while doing the same thing actually. Taking a picture of your license plate, which is public information, and Jason 910 attacking me, and then kidnapping, and then stating that I was interfering with an investigation. I'm going to get I.I.S. Stating that I was interfering with an investigation that was not underway, and that investigation was criminal summoning, using a traffic stop to engage in gang stalking with the people of the state. All right, that's January 13, 2020, with the same airport that was hovering in the sky space, that's still hovering while they're flying over. The airport taking off is not going to be, you're not going to see the full body of the plane, you're not going to see that light. The entity is hovering, stalking, doing so while they are still participating in the monitoring conduct with that entity. And the entity is doing so pursuant to what is, that ego is what's going to have the entity disbanded and going to prison. But nonetheless, this is an entity that is engaging in what is providing evidence for you to witness how targeting is underway by corrupt police departments. And that is speaking to what is an express and implied threat. And what the entity has already committed is relevant to that threat. It's going to be based on the facts and circumstances, but it's a threat period for the police to engage in stalking you. When you have established that P.O.C., all you're doing is stalking. You're not shopping at the 7-Eleven, you're stalking. All right, and you're doing so with, it's also relevant, the status of the people of the state and also the immigrant population who are going to be raided for that very reason. They're engaging in terrorism together. Okay, it is currently
12:33 a.m. That's an entity threatening me, and that's the level of impunity that I'm accosted with because I'm dealing with a demonic spirit that has a high level of an ego. They're obviously accustomed to corruption and obviously adverse toward what is being told about what's going to happen to them. So that's the entity that engages in that level of pettiness that is documented, sitting on the record. It's nothing other than ongoing criminal monitoring. That's impossible light activity, and at this documented venue, a history of targeting, and doing so with the intent to obstruct justice. P.O.C. I'm going to enter my phone number.
Can I report?
Huh?
Report for them? Report? You make report?
No, I'm on the phone.
Okay. So like now like they are chasing you, so you can't call to the 911.
One more time? Call 911?
Yeah.
When they come in here?
No. If they are chasing you without any reason.
If they're chasing me? Oh, you mean
Yeah.
if they're stalking? You're saying,
Yeah.
do you call 911?
Yeah.
That's exactly my point. Who do you call when the police are the criminals?
Yeah.
Exactly. I don't really think it's funny. I think that's quite a predicament.
But we have to think.
Yeah.
Where we can call.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the issue. You call the feds. That's what you call. All right. So that's what's actually happening. That's why it's important for me to not have my ongoing case interfered with when I'm documenting them engaging in targeting me, because that's exactly what that was.
Yeah.
They don't care about shopping at 7-Eleven, nothing personally, but they don't care about shopping at 7-Eleven. It's because I'm here and they're engaged in a documented pattern of following
Because they
me
all
around.
came in a regular way.
And they'll come in again because they're going to establish what is a reputation of being at 7-Eleven, and so that's going to suggest it's not about Erica, but it is about me. It is. It absolutely is. And this isn't the first time that I've been targeted by that agency here at this same exact 7-Eleven, just so that you know. But anyway, it's fine.
Second time here chasing you.
That's fine. I just wanted to know if I could still come back and just buy the coconut water. That's all I wanted.
Yeah, no,
It's all good.
Yeah, but
What's happening?
no.
Oh.
Maybe this chip is not working. They just fit the chip, maybe fake.
Can I start?
Yeah, take another side.
And you said 50 cents for the ice or what?
Yeah, don't worry. Thank you.
Okay. Can I have a receipt, please?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Have a good night. All right, again, this is relevant to the entity Stalking License 7R81213. This is relevant to the entity Jason Fields, the federal government not engaging in an investigation, clearly watching us and also facilitating, enabling, and also, as an aside, enjoying watching the Ontario police, watching the entity, the City of Ontario, the state, target me. This is what Jason Isaac Fields has been engaged in. There was never any investigation pertaining to Erica Lorenz Spencer because I've never been a criminal. So any investigation is evidence. It's an admission by the federal government that they are targeting me. And targeting was committed by Jason Fields by the federal government in order to conceal things such as murder that this entity has committed, to conceal things such as sex trafficking. Okay, somebody like myself who has was adopted secretly. Okay, Tracy Banks having, again, an undisclosed status pertaining to me
whether she is in fact actually my biological mother. These are details that the government wants to keep concealed, that Jason Isaac Fields is interested in keeping concealed because it also impacts whether he goes to prison. Okay, so he is very much interested in targeting me and then calling it an investigation in order to protect each other, protect Fields, protect his old lady Tracy Banks, who's committed a criminal activity that he's responsible for as well, because he provided what is a cover for her, a way for her to commit it, a way for her to get away with it. That's facilitation. And also he's engaged in that's also relevant to the federal government, Jason Fields, protecting the state. And this is why the state has free reign. This is why you see Owens and Barton, these demons that are stalking by helicopter, following me around, literally following, the entity is flying over my head at F Street. It's very specific where the entity is engaging with this targeting with helicopter activity. Doing so literally as I'm documenting from place to place to place. It would be one thing if somebody's stating, oh, I encountered this weird experience, like the helicopter was flying around me. But typically that's not something that somebody's going to experience on a daily basis, not even on a weekly basis. The entity is engaged in what is concrete evidence of targeting, and for the entity to have that ability to do so, and Fields, the federal government, stating or claiming that they're having an investigation is blatantly deceitful and dishonest, okay? This is the entity targeting together. Jason Fields is going to federal prison for the impunity that Barton and Owens exhibit while they're gang stalking me. And they also do so under the false idea that something is going to, it's a threat to engage in kidnapping, first of all, so it's going to result in a kidnapping or something, or I'm going to spaz out and then I'm going to try to attack them and then they're able to shoot me, or something like weird and extreme and something. But I do want to be clear, it is a threat. They're going to prison because you're bearing weapons. You're also claiming to be having authority under the law, which you don't have, which they do. Again, like they do have that authority, when actually they don't. They actually do not under the law while they're engaged in what is the public corruption of criminal surveillance and targeting me, which is a system, an ongoing criminal system that I have to prove on my own, and I have proven it. Until the day that it's in a federal court, however, the entity is still engaged in that ongoing threat. Now, Hazelwood and Ravanko and Owens and Barton, these demons tonight stalking, blatantly, conspicuously stalking is what it's referred to as. They're doing so because the federal government is not engaging in an investigation. Jason Fields is not engaged in an investigation, nor was he ever. Okay? They're serving to protect Tracy Banks and have me sacrificed so that they can get away with pedophilia, so that they can get away with theft of my money and property, so that they can avoid being exposed for murders committed surrounding me, and so that they can get away with what is targeting me in the way in which my documentation also shows, which is relevant to the collateral crimes, the collateral harms suffered and the collateral crimes committed by this same entity. This is relevant regarding what is, when you're engaged in surveillance, the entity has heard me talk very often about the feds, very often about investigation. It's not a secret. The entity is aware of a federal investigation. Why would you be engaged in that conduct with regard to what is targeting? And an investigation of the federal government that's even suspected of targeting someone, and you're engaged in what is conduct, it's not suggesting that you're fearful to engage in that which is not even going to suggest that it is even remotely possible, meaning you're typically not even going to have any encounters around the police. The entity does that and much more. Going out of your way to be in the presence at the same market, and not only that, you're speaking to what's no coincidence. It's in the specific environment. All you're doing is stalking. It's not traffic. It's stalking. You're not just passing by, you're stalking in the helicopters. You're stalking from place to place in helicopters. You're stalking for a prolonged period of time over my head in circles in helicopters. And then you're following, because that's what you're doing when I go to 7-Eleven and a gang of demons of that agency are there pursuant to what is stalking. Okay, and this is an entity that does so as a means of communicating whatever a demon, whatever a delusional psychopath that's being documented thinks that they're communicating based on my podcast, that they're sitting up salivating over. They worship everything that I say. Okay, and then they respond to it emotionally by gang stalking me in that manner at the 7-Eleven. And they do so with impunity, which is relevant to federal prison for terrorists like Jason Isaac Fields, protecting terrorists and predators like Tracy Banks, protecting those that have engaged in what is targeting and stealing from me, like the people of the state who are engaging in targeting with that agency, the Ontario Police Department. They're not ignorant about a so-called investigation. that investigation relies on them targeting me and waiting for me to drop dead, waiting for me to lose my mind, waiting for me to prove that I'm everything that Jason Fields defamed me as, that the Ontario Police Department even defamed me as, waiting for that to just somehow, even though I've never been that and my history doesn't reflect that, and it's not just going to all of a sudden occur and happen or start to look like none of that was ever going to happen. They're merely engaged in what is their fantasy of ongoing obsessive monitoring and stalking me, and doing so in hopes that they can get away with somehow a mysterious demise. And then the entity, as though that's just going to make the case disappear. Okay, but that's what the entity intended to do. The entity's gang stalking at 7-Eleven is, again, evidence that's putting Jason Fields in federal prison under all circumstances. There was never a legitimate investigation by the federal government of myself. I should have been given my money and property years ago. But for the criminal activity of Tracy Banks of the state, I would have had my money and property. It's because they lied about my property. They lied about my identity. They lied about who I am. And they did so. They were able to do so by the same state that did it in my absence. That's not an accident either. And it's clearly a violation of how such hearings are supposed to be conducted. The entity excluded me from such hearings where they were defaming my character and then in claiming to be engaging in what is investigating unsubstantiated claims pertaining to hearsay. No, that's gang stalking. They were targeting me the whole time, before and after and during those hearings. I have been subject to gang stalking, which I've been documenting. Jason Isaac Fields, the entity, claims that they're investigating, which was ongoing gang stalking. So it was gang stalking that was intensified, okay, with a very specific agenda to get rid of me. And that didn't work. But I want to be clear, the entity that's gang stalking, like I'm capturing, is the entity that's doing so with the federal government, okay? With the commission to get rid of, make me disappear, okay? That's what the entity is doing. And Jason Isaac Fields is fully engaged in that to date. This is a coward who knows that he's going to federal prison. And the Ontario Police Department, the City of Ontario, they're not ignorant about an investigation. So it is relevant why and how they are engaging in that conduct in the face of the federal government. Because the federal government that claims to be conducting an investigation, that's watching the blatant targeting, the conspicuous stalking is an unlawful threat. It's bad enough when you're creeping around in dark corners and parking lots and in the dark, lurking and doing so on the roads and the highways as a police department, to be conspicuously in the presence of the target individual. You're stalking them and you're doing so in their face. That's an unlawful threat. And the entity is doing that on a regular basis, okay? The entity is doing that while the federal government is investigating whether this agency, whether the state is targeting them. And to be in your face, in your presence like that is not evidence suggesting anything opposite of that. The entity is engaging in this also in the specific environment. The entity is doing so with regard to what is essentially like all the venues where I'm documenting regular gang stalking by that agency. And so then they engage in what is shopping at the market when I arrive there, shopping at that market. Okay, and then excluding me from the market, threatening to engage in kidnapping, contrary to what this clerk is stating. He said that he didn't want that. It doesn't matter. He doesn't run what the Ontario Police do. He's gang stalking with them. The Ontario Police Department have and are engaged in a criminal system where they will engage in arresting you, period, which is kidnapping you, period. And that third party will say whatever they're told to say, to be honest with you. They'll say whatever. It'll go from, well, they didn't say that, to, oh, yes, I did say that because she was disrupting and she was, we don't permit that, and she would not leave, and she was being loud and disruptive and interfering with my business, or whatever it is that they'll say. It'll change, and you can't rely on, well, you get what they say. I'm documenting what he says, but that's not like concrete. The entity goes and they literally go with the flow. It depends on what I've exposed. It depends on what I say. It depends on what I know or what they think I know. And that depends on what their state is. It depends on what their position is and what they expose, what they state about this, and what they do, how they proceed, literally. Okay, the entities engaged, for example, the kidnapping by Jonathan Burnett and Sequoia. Jonathan Burnett, serial number 19993, with Tracy Banks in 2019, May 2019. Jonathan Burnett pulled out his cell phone and he played on his cell phone in the parking lot of West Valley Jail while I'm handcuffed in his car. He's engaged in a kidnapping with Sequoia, and he plays on his phone the oral exchange, the argument that occurred between Tracy Banks and myself, which was inside of her apartment, when I had her phone and I took it from her, and I think I threw it or something. I took her phone though. She was in my face, pacing in the nude, and refusing to close her door, and pacing back and forth, monitoring. And so we got into a verbal exchange. In order to get her out of my presence, I took her phone off the dresser. Yeah, I didn't take it from her. I took it off the dresser and I removed it. And that's when she hit me. And that's when I told her, if you hit me again, I'm going to hurt you. Okay, paraphrasing. And this argument, that very sentence, because I heard my voice and I heard her voice on his phone, he pulls it out of his pocket in the West Valley parking lot. And there was no police present. There were no police present. She had not made any phone call. She left the apartment and said, I'm going to call the police. And she stormed out the apartment. So the quote unquote police weren't called until after she left. But yet Jonathan Burnett is pulling out his phone, and on his communication device can play back. Okay, he was rewinding and listening to what was said while he's writing out why he committed a kidnapping. And it's described on the probable cause as what was the cause, what's precipitating the arrest. He's playing back the argument and also making up what was the charge. It goes from obstruction to what was an assault and battery. And she's the one that battered me. But nonetheless, aside from that, the point is that when this happened, I didn't say anything about it at first. Priska So is engaged in a kidnapping, and so is Judge Umata. They're engaged in a kidnapping, and so is Chang of the DA's office. They're all engaged in kidnapping. The court is gang stalking with this police department. And in the same way that they're gang stalking tonight, the entity that's engaged in gang stalking with the sheriff's department and with the court are going to federal prison. And the entities engaging in this, and it's relevant to, again, like I stated, what it is that I exposed. And the entity, and this is why you can't rely on him say, oh, well, I said that I didn't want you to be arrested. This is what he claims. And whether or not that's true, it's in my podcast documentation, because I was addressing these demons of this agency while he was speaking out loud. I basically was not acknowledging him. I was acknowledging him, but I was concentrating on the demons, Owens and Barton, and getting their identity. So he states that he said that he didn't want me arrested, but he wanted me to leave. But that's going to result in what is a kidnapping. Okay, but that's the whole, you're getting to the, oh, I said no, but I want you to leave. Understand that that's double talk. He's talking out of both sides of his mouth. Oh, I don't want you arrested, but I want you to leave. And if you don't leave, then what? Okay, you are still engaging in that conduct while trying to make it seem like you're not trying to engage in what is first of all, obstruction of justice, and trying to stop me from documenting you and this department gang stalking me together. And that's what is going to result is what is a kidnapping by that agency. Because why are you referring to it if you're not? Why are you addressing what he's saying to me if you're not going to try to force me to leave the store while you're gang stalking? And I'm documenting it, which I have a right to do. American citizens, you're going to document the government that's targeting you, or you have a right to. You don't have to document, you could just report it. But in order to prosecute, you have to prove a pattern of conduct of stalking, just like under traditional stalking. And the federal government is aware that the pattern of conduct is real. Okay, so stalking with the fake son, and you're talking about a pattern of harassment targeting by that agency, you're documenting, and all of the precedent has already been, the foundation has been laid out and created by myself. So they know what the pattern of conduct looks like. Okay, and they also know that you're not mentally ill when you claim that these demons are doing psychopathic things that defy what you've ever witnessed before. They know that that's real as well. They know that you're not crazy because you state the crazy behavior that the demon possess and the malicious behavior that the demon possess engage in. All right, so the entity's engaging in playing. He pulls out his cell phone and he is playing back the argument while I'm in his car kidnapped, in handcuffs, and this is what the entity is doing, just like Owens, just like Barton, thinking that it's funny on this day, thinking that they're getting away with something, and this is what's going to be used against them in court, okay? And it's not going to be so funny, it's not going to be cool, and it's not going to feel as good as it did in the second for a psychopath that feels like they're getting payback for something that they don't like, that it soothes that ego, okay? That ego, which is a demon, okay? The entity's engaged in criminal activity, and the entity's engaging in this while I am documenting, I'm documenting through my memory, because they've kidnapped me, and I don't have a pen and paper, I don't have my phone, but I'm kidnapped inside of the back of Burnett's vehicle, parked at West Valley, fake sun over the top of my head, which I've proven the fake sun is over me at West Valley. I documented that on July 4th, 2025, and that's exactly what was the case while Burnett pulls out his cell phone, and it's playing back on his phone where nobody called the police at that time. Okay, she leaves the apartment and she calls the police. She claims she calls the police after she leaves the apartment because that's when she stormed out. And I stayed in the apartment, and I was not fazed by it. She's a sex offender, and it's totally inappropriate. Why are you naked? This is annoying. Okay, put some clothes on and stop pacing like a psychopath. And because she's monitoring, and she's a demon, and she does it in the nude because she's a pedophile. This is what she's been doing when she was grooming me as a child. I don't want to see you naked. Okay, so the entity's engaging in this, and he's pulling out his phone, and this is something that Priska So claiming to be representing herself as a public defender, and she's not. Okay, she's not, because I never should have been arrested in the first place. It was an illegal arrest. I should have been released based on that. But again, they're not actually representing your interests. They're participating in a kidnapping, and they do so by the intentional lack of any genuine representation of your interests. I'll put it that way. Okay, you are denied what is zealous advocacy, which you are entitled to competent representation, and for them to give you less than competent, it's not merely a unprofessional act that you would bring a claim to the board, some administrative suit. No, it's a criminal offense. They're gang stalking. They're engaged in surveillance. This is how they participate in kidnapping you, by not defending you, and doing so on an obvious basis. This is beyond incompetence. It was a unlawful search in my vehicle, and they also engaged in changing the charges once after they engaged in kidnapping, changing it from what was obstruction and then obstruction of an arrest. How? It's not a lawful arrest. So you don't get to what is an arrest until you have probable cause to arrest. You don't have probable cause, so how is it an obstruction to arrest? Number one. Number two, they changed it from obstruction to arrest, which is what I was told I was being arrested for, and then Priska So, who's engaged in a kidnapping, not a defense, okay? She's stating that it was for assault and battery. So, and when Tracy Banks is the one that was engaged in assault and battery, okay? For me to grab her phone is not a battery. And you don't have the right to hit me because I am grabbing your phone. So I just want to make sure that that's clear. So the entity's engaging in this pattern of conduct, and him playing back the argument that occurred inside of her supposedly private property, where I'm under surveillance, and I've proven that. I've fully documented wood sites in your apartments. Okay, all of the angles of the case are already surrounded regarding what it is that I can refer to by memory about what this entity committed. And not only that, the entity, and that is also a documented kidnapping. Frank Wendy Victor is the case, and it is in 2019, May of 2019. It is published on my website. This is the this is the P.O.C.wordpress.com. And this is one of the kidnappings that this city of Ontario engaged in. And the point where I'm getting to, where what the demon possessed, what the corrupt entity does based on what it is that I do, I kept that to myself. I didn't mention it because Priska So was already showing herself to be engaged in what is targeting me by not addressing an unlawful search. And that precipitated into an unlawful arrest, which was obvious bait for her as a competent attorney genuinely representing my interests. And she did not do that, did not address it. I sat in jail for a prolonged period before I had the first hearing, and talking about ridiculous things like parole and whatnot, which I'm not going to agree to. I'll sit in jail before I agree to parole, and that's exactly what I told them, because I know that everybody's going to prison for what I suffered. I'm not going to sign anything. I'm not going to agree to any of this, and nor can you under the law. Even if you sign, it's all what is unlawful. It's under duress. You're being coerced. You cannot agree to criminal activity by the state, and that's going to be dealt with. But nonetheless, I know better, and I'm not going to sign it. I'm not signing anything. You're engaged in kidnapping, so you go ahead with your kidnapping because you're going to prison. So the entity's engaging in this, and Priska So is disingenuously and without any, again, denying me what is zealous advocacy of my rights when I'm subject to, this is no ordinary just false arrest. This is a kidnapping, while she is engaged in gang stalking as well. They are actively kidnapping. And so it wasn't until like the second hearing when I tell her, you're talking about this hearing and how we're going to talk about this at the trial readiness concert, and I finally told her, Burnett pulled out his cell phone in the parking lot at the jail, and he played back the argument that occurred between Tracy and I in her apartment before anybody called the police, before she called the police. Okay, because it wasn't enough for her to know that I was in my car with the door closed and the windows covered up. So how did Burnett even know that I was inside of my car? How did he even know where my car was? So for Tracy Banks to describe my car to him, if that was the case, he's obviously getting information about her when there's no argument, meaning there's no emergency underway. So you're coming after the fact, after the event has already transpired. And if she is, again, I'm just covering all the bases. Even if she does encounter Burnett and tell him what car I'm in and where it's located, how do you know that I'm inside of it? The windows were covered up. And even if I am inside of it, which you don't know, you're not supposed to know, but there are demons that are monitoring that do know. And I'm inside of it, you don't have any warrant or probable cause. There is no exception for you to be opening up my car door. That's an unlawful search. There's no exception. There's no warrant exception for him to have done that. And then they engaged in attacking me, pulling pulling my hair out and putting his knee in the back of my chest, outright abuse. And then him and Sequoia arresting me and claiming that I was obstructing an arrest, an unlawful arrest, pursuant to what is an unlawful search of my vehicle, having no right under the law to even enter into my vehicle. Okay, the entity is engaging in what is gang stalking, however. That's no ordinary violation of the warrant exception. That's a kidnapping pursuant to what is criminal surveillance. He knows exactly where I'm at. That's what you do know. And you know that based on the fake son. You know that based on the documented, because of years later, you know that based on my documentation of that agency targeting, including by helicopter. Okay, doing so, there's no coincidental shopping at the 7-Eleven in the engineered environment. All right. And the entity is engaging in what is, after I tell Priska So this about him playing back an argument inside of a supposedly private property where the police are not engaging in surveillance, so they would not know what was said unless they were told, but you certainly wouldn't have a recording of it. Okay. So this is what I'm telling Priska So, my so-called public defender. And after I said that, first of all, it was like a chill that ran through the courtroom because these are all demons. All right. These are all the entity. It's like because when you're talking to one person, remember you're talking to a spirit. These are demons. So everybody in that courtroom, it's like they all pause at the same time. And it's not because I was talking out loud. I was talking low to my attorney, and everybody in that courtroom reacted. And the next thing that I know, the case was dropped. OK, they did a truncated version of what is a hearing. They did not include the body cam. Okay, that was on purpose. They don't want to show the beating that they engaged in. And not only that, Priska So immediately, very quickly got rid of the case. Oh, did you know the identity of Erica Spencer? And this is how she's just getting to the point of trying to find some other basis. Doesn't want to address the fact that he has information regarding private information that he shouldn't have. That's exceeding an unlawful search. Okay, but she doesn't address that. Again, not zealously representing my interests. Doesn't address that, and is also speaking, oh, so how do you know that it was Erica Spencer? Were you told about what she looks like? How do you know what she looks like? And she's basically getting to the point, alluding to the point to where it was an assumption on his part that I was in the vehicle and that he should not have opened up the vehicle, and they immediately dropped the case, okay? But I shouldn't have sat in jail for 2 weeks. Okay, I shouldn't have sat in jail. And that's pursuant to that's where they're engaging in exercise of authority under the law that they don't have, where they're engaging in what is masquerading as a criminal justice system. Ongoing targeting is underway. And that was an attempted kidnapping. And based on what I told, if I hadn't told Priska So that, in other words, that court case wouldn't have gone, that hearing wouldn't have gone that way. The moment that I said that, when I dropped that bomb, the entity changed. Oh, it went from she didn't have any sort of deal. They weren't ready to. I'm not going to agree to any deal in the first place. But they're full throttle. They're going to prosecute when you don't have a case and you've made up charges. But to me, dropping that information, all of a sudden, oh, we're going to get rid of this right now. And that's exactly what happened. They got rid of it really quickly. Okay, that's what I mean by you're not relying on you document, you investigate, get what the third party said, because even if they lie later, oh no, this is what you said, this is why you document it. But this is the entity that's corrupt, and they say anything at however it may benefit or serve the purposes at that time. You're dealing with outright corruption. You're dealing with demonic spirits as well. These are outright liars. They will look you in your face and tell you, I'm a black man, when you're clearly looking at a white woman. Okay, that's what I mean by blatant lying. Okay, literally that serious. And so the entity, if they can get away with it, okay. So the entity is engaging in what is stating that, oh, I said that I didn't want you to be kidnapped, but stating that you want me to leave from the property and I stay there and I keep documenting, which I have a right to do, is that which the entity is also going to act on. You are impliedly requesting that they remove me from the property, which is, again, your engagement in kidnapping. And this was orchestrated. They're stalking. And by the way, that impossible light activity, the engineered environment, the entity stalking by you saw the helicopter on the video. Well, you can watch it. You heard me narrating it. The entity's gang stalking, and they think that it's funny. And that was, again, the entity that puts more value on their ego than the reality of prison. And that's a reality. I just want to be clear. Barton, the Owens, and the demon that's, again, gang stalking on video, you see that smile from ear to ear. This is also relevant to, I'm going to prosecute. This is establishing precedent how an entity, it's not funny what the entity does. Remember, they're doing this to me when I'm conducting a public investigation. So even while I'm showing you impunity, there is, to a degree, a level of what is holding back what is the actual criminal conduct and threatening conduct that they would engage in if I didn't have a camera on, if I wasn't holding an investigation. And they're still engaging in egregious criminal conduct even while I'm publishing the evidence. Okay? And it is including things like what Burnett and Sequoia have engaged in and what Lester Keyes and Jonathan Knighton have engaged in, attacking me, making up information, and kidnapping me. Just blatant criminal conduct. This is the type of things that American citizens are subject to. And it's not funny. And it's not a small thing when you're stalking conspicuously in the neighborhood market. All right? And you are going to federal prison for that. Based on the unlawful threat, the entity very easily takes your life. And like I've been subject to, making up reasons as to why. And like I've stated, the people of the state ready to bear false witness and corroborate that. While they're all gang stalking that person that's shot dead in the street by the gang stalking police. That's the threat that you're facing. I want to be clear, you're going to be prosecuted based on not only the actual threat, but what is an unlawful threat, an unreasonable threat, okay? So it's not that you didn't shoot me while you were at 7-Eleven. It's the fact that you are opposing that unlawful threat that an American citizen has a right to not be subject to because you are engaged in surveillance. And what are you doing that for? You don't have a legitimate interest in it, and you're doing it in furtherance of murder. You're going to prison when you're engaged in conspicuous stalking, like the demon-possessed just did at 7-Eleven with smiles all across their faces. And doing so, I want to be clear, pay attention to everything. That lacks, they're just chilling in the parking lot. Okay, they're chilling. They're chilling for a longer amount of time. Oh, because they feel like they've made a flex, if you will, by telling me to get off the property. And if I don't, then what? Oh, then you're going to kidnap. I want to make sure I get that threat because you're going to prison while you're monitoring. It's all audible activity. They're monitoring. Okay, so this is relevant to the entity that's engaging in that, and this is relevant to the entity that's engaging in surveillance and doing so with pertaining to surveillance of documentation that the entity is hostile to. And that's both speaking to a level of pettiness, and also that level of pettiness is also a threat to your life. So that's speaking to very far lengths that they'll go to quote unquote prove a point. What is the point? You're a stalker. So you're going out of your way to engage in more stalking as some means of communicating some threat. This is also in influencing and causing the people of the state to think that they have a cause to continue in. And it's really just going to put the people of the state in prison. Okay, so nonetheless, I just want to be clear. This is the entity that is, again, gang stalking while they are not ignorant about a federal investigation. And that impunity, that the entity that's engaged in that conspicuous stalking, like they are doing on a daily basis by helicopter stalking me around the city, doing so while they are monitoring. Remember, when I'm remaining in my hotel room, they're stalking me by going and stalking my hotel room while I'm at any venue, any hotel in this venue, including at Tracy Banks' apartment by helicopters as an agency in what is a specific environment. This is not me going out of my way to find myself in their presence. They are literally stalking, and they are literally engaged in what is keeping me under surveillance and engaging in doing that even more so as I document that. And the entity doing so at the 7-Eleven while they are finding it humorous, or at least I just want to be clear, actually they don't. They're actually furious. But they are conducting themselves outwardly because they also are under the false impression that when you're smiling and coking and joking and seemingly not taking anything serious, that there's not a threat there. And that's also false, and that's also an illusion that's presented to you. But this is relevant to what is Jason Fields, the federal government, not investigating. The Ontario Police Department were given free rein to terrorize me, and the Jason Isaac Fields on a time watch, okay, hoping that I am eliminated before a time to be in federal court happens, okay. Doing so with regard to what is the permission of the federal government is people like Fields are going to federal prison for that. And you are always understanding who I'm advocating on behalf of, the ordinary target individual who is subject to what I'm exposing and much, much more. They don't have evidence, okay? They don't have a legal skill set. They're not intimidating the entity with their legal knowledge or anything like that, okay? They are being bullied, and they are treated as though they don't have a voice whatsoever, which, again, the entity is engaged in what is treating me that way, but I've stated what it is. And what's going to happen, that's exactly what's going to happen, okay? But the entity is still, you're looking at what is a delusional, a mentally ill entity that's engaging in that in the face of that, of being told beforehand about what's going to happen to them, and also in the face of it being captured as evidence. You understand what surveillance is. You're looking at that impossible light activity that's never, in other words, happening under any natural circumstances. Those are demons, and they're stalking me. They came to that 7-Eleven. In that environment, you're not coincidentally meeting up with any stranger. It's surveillance, and they're stalking while I just so happen to be engaging what is a publicly posted and exposed investigation. They're stalking under all circumstances, because they want to go out of their way to be present, to make some sort of statement. The only statement is that you're stalking. You're stalking, and you're stalking while you're being prosecuted in front of everyone. And you're not making a statement of strength or defiance or rebellion. You're going to prison. And guess what? The people of the state that are immigrants gang stalking with you are being deported. You're a liability to those that are targeting with you. And I want to break down the rationale behind everything that I just documented. The people of the state are engaged in that pattern of conduct with them. That's the level of criminality. Excuse me, I'm eating a piece of ice. That the people of the state are incentivized to engage in, to participate in, for no other reason other than they just want to stand up to somebody that they're supposed to be bullying. That's literally what you're going out of your way to. This isn't any. They're going to federal prison for gang stalking. It's not a less of a threat because you're smiling. It's not less of a threat because you're in there buying gummy bears, and because you're chit-chatting, chilling in the parking lot. That's a direct threat to your life and safety. They're engaged in criminal surveillance underway where the government, you don't have any sort of legitimate interest, regardless of what you're doing while you're engaging in surveillance. That's how, by the way, that system is supposed to occur. And that's also how it's going to occur when they're being accused of what is things such as kidnapping and malicious assertions while they're stalking. And so you're still engaged in gang stalking while you're at the 7-Eleven buying anything. You're engaged in gang stalking when you're parking across the street from the 7-Eleven, stalking in the path. You're engaged in stalking at 7-Eleven when you're flying over by helicopter. You're engaged in stalking at 7-Eleven when you're stopping at the stop sign and then proceeding to drive in any direction. You're stalking. It's all stalking. The entities engaging in that, and they are, again, relying on the surface of the thing, the surface appearance, the malice of the pattern of conduct, which is very highly unpersuasive. It's conspicuous stalking when you're engaging in what is arriving where I'm at. You're conspicuously stalking, and you will not, under any circumstances, to an American, impossible light, this is a demon. They're just now crossing paths, and when I first said that, impossible light is moving across the house, just like you saw the demon-possessed gang stalking on video with that same agency by helicopter at F Street in Euclid. And the people of the state are gang stalking inside of their homes. Nonetheless, the entities engaging in this pattern of conduct, and they're doing so pursuant to what is that exact specific knowledge. You're not in this environment engaging in just, oh, let's stop by the 7-Eleven and buy something. They specifically went there stalking me, monitoring me, harassing and terrorizing me, and then threatening to engage in a kidnapping while I'm documenting them stalking me, monitoring me, harassing and terrorizing me by even being a patron at the gang stalking establishment 7-Eleven. That is sharing in that threat, sharing in a threat to engage in kidnapping with the intent to obstruct justice. That's relevant, okay? It is currently, and it's also relevant to the federal government that's not investigating and was not investigating the targeting that I have been documenting, and was not investigating me having been no criminal ever. And I'm still not a criminal now while I'm documenting the pattern of conduct. And the federal government has been engaged in the pattern of conduct. And Jason Fields has been engaged in the pattern of conduct and hoping and praying to Satan for my demise. And he's going to prison for Owens and Barton and these demons gang stalking at 7-Eleven. That's why he's going to federal prison, because this is the criminal system that he was engaging in. And this criminal conduct that they commit with a smile on their face, taking very lightly domestic terrorism and psychological torture and terrorism with immigrants at that, they're engaging in that in furtherance of murder. That's no small thing whatsoever, at all. That's not a small thing at all. And there's also nothing entertaining or funny about it. And that's how they're engaging in terrorism, however. That's relevant. It's got the exact different, it has an entirely different impact than what the demon-possessed intended to have. Oh, you know, nobody's concerned about Erica. Oh, that's Erica. Hey, Erica. Yeah, we're just chilling, Erica. Okay, we're going to buy some gummy bears, Erica. Have a good night, Erica. And then they're gang stalking the entire time. Those are the elements of monitoring. And this is an entity that fails to take very seriously the prosecution for terrorists, domestic terrorists in this country that are wearing police uniforms. And you are delusional to be documented targeting as an agency every day. And then to be in my face where I can get your name and identity and badge number. That's the same agency gang stalking every day. Just like the people of the state, as I document by license plate, gang stalking every day. That's a level of delusion that's relevant to the prosecution. Okay, it is currently 1:14 a.m. and it is Tuesday, September 23rd, 2025. This is an unlawful threat. While the entity is engaging in what is nothing other than harassment, which is what Owens and Hazelwood are engaging in when they're claiming that the people of the state stated that I was trespassing on her, excuse my French, her piece of crap ghetto boutique where she doesn't have any customers, claiming that I was trespassing her property. And I never even approached her threshold. Okay, and me documenting your license plate on the sidewalk is not approaching your threshold. And not only that, Owens and Hazelwood know that because they're monitoring. And I documented the entity monitoring as an agency. You're stalking by helicopter. That's the same agency. They're all engaged in gang stalking me together. They share information. You're maliciously in my presence while you're also incapable of accurately applying the law regarding trespass. You're coming in my face with what you know is not a trespass because you're monitoring me. You're gang stalking. You want to be in my face, which is a threat. This is what you're doing at 7-Eleven. You want to be in my face, which is a threat. And you want to be in my face because you don't like the authority with which I speak. And I tell you and everybody else that you are going to prison. And this is why you're going to prison. And this is also why you're going to be subject to mental examinations. You're demonstrating your mental illness, and it's going to be at the forefront of your prosecution, and you have done it to yourself. This is how you're going to be targeting domestic terrorists in the U.S., and this is also the basis of deporting all of the immigrants in the city of Ontario that are engaging in terrorism with that corrupt agency. It is currently, again, 1:15 a.m., and it is Tuesday, September 23rd, 2025. This is relevant evidence regarding what is Jason Isaac Fields' inevitable time in federal prison for gang stalking me in furtherance of murder with that agency, and for the ongoing torture that I have endured, for the ongoing prolonged investigation that I had to maintain single-handedly while suffering ongoing criminal acts by this entity, because the entity was not only prosecuted already a long time ago by myself, but then the entity just engaged in what is ongoing obstruction of justice, for which Jason Fields is going to prison. He's going to
5HNV, it's like 929, 9DFB, 525 is what I want to say. You can scratch that last one because I can't recall the last three. These demons are molesting with impulsive light while they're stalking. Again, they're aiming light based on what is monitoring. So as I'm using my sleeping bag, and this is when the light of day is beginning to surface, and I'm still looking at concentrated light that they're molesting me with, based on monitoring what it is that I'm doing. Like I said, it's not traffic. These demons are stalking. stalking, and that's how pathetic the demon-possessed are. This is how they stalk one person by maintaining hundreds of people on the roads and the highways, and this is also how they engage in what is murdering someone. 88ET 185. It's currently 6:35 a.m. Those demons are engaged in what is stalking with light. This is terrorism, and it's also the sex offense, and it's also the information that is going to be used relevant to committing the entity that's engaged in gang stalking. P.O.C.
Psalm 118. Oh, give thanks to the Lord, for he is good, for his steadfast love endures forever. Let Israel say, his steadfast love endures forever. Let the house of Aaron say, his steadfast love endures forever. Let those who fear the Lord say, his steadfast love endures forever. Out of my distress I called on the Lord. The Lord answered me and set me free. The Lord is on my side. I will not fear. What can man do to me? The Lord is on my side as my helper. I shall look in triumph on those who hate me. It is better to take refuge in the Lord than to trust in man. It is better to take refuge in the Lord than to trust in princes. All nations surround me. In the name of the Lord, I cut them off. They surrounded me on every side. In the name of the Lord, I cut them off. They surrounded me like bees. They went out like a fire among thorns. In the name of the Lord, I cut them off. I was pushed hard so that I was falling, but the Lord helped me. The Lord is my strength, and my song, he has become my salvation. Glad songs of salvation are in the tents of the righteous. The right hand of the Lord does valiantly. The right hand of the Lord exalts. The right hand of the Lord does valiantly. I shall not die, but I shall live and recount the deeds of the Lord. The Lord has disciplined me severely, but he has not given me over to death. Open to me the gates of righteousness, that I may enter through them and give thanks to the Lord. This is the gate of the Lord. The righteous shall enter through it. I thank you that you have answered me and have become my salvation. The stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. This is the Lord's doing. It is marvelous in our eyes. This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Save us, we pray, O Lord. O Lord, we pray, give us success. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. We bless you from the house of the Lord. The Lord is God, and he has made his light to shine upon us. Bind the festal sacrifice with cords up to the horns of the altar. You are my God, and I will give thanks to you. You are my God, I will extol you. Oh, give thanks to the Lord, for he is good, for his steadfast love endures forever. License 7MAM913. And third party CBRE. That's the logo. That's an acronym, CBRE. And I've documented this third party gang stalking at Wells Fargo before. Engaging in what is terrorism, stalking with impossible light, molesting me at a distance with impossible light, and also stalking under the fake sun in concert with the state. In doing so, this business is acting in furtherance of the conspiracy to commit murder and is engaged in domestic terrorism, federal stalking under Title 18. And this is license plate 11092W2. And this is a male operating this van. It's a white van. And this is at third-party facilitating venue Wells Fargo, located at 240 North Euclid Avenue in Ontario, California, 91762. Wells Fargo is gang stalking as well. License 7Z13092. 8MFV174, 6XCP114, KNYKID2, 7NWW102, 6WTG338, Z as in zebra, P09508, and that's a commercial vehicle to truck. License 9STY841, 9JXC593, 8TXL889, 9UJA161, 8ENW304, 9FGW461, 6AEH495, 4HHE852, 35369F3. An American medical response driven by what appears to be a Latina female. This is a mental illness that is exposed to the public, which needs to be known regarding public corruption, criminal activity, and also the unstable who are in the medical field posing a threat to the American public and engaging in criminal conduct at the same time. And it's criminal conduct that is an unlawful and unreasonable threat to American citizens when you are gang stalking and doing so in an emergency vehicle like American Medical Response is engaging in the pattern of conduct with the state of California. AMR vehicle 16836, license 70432V2, license 9GNY474. And this is P.O.C, the entity engaging what is gang stalking at the Ontario Town Square. Doing so, again, in the morning, it's currently 9:16 a.m. I'm capturing the fake sun in alignment to me. And doing so, by being in alignment to me, this is the fake sun that is in this city, on this one street, remaining in alignment to me, whichever direction that I am traveling on this street. And then if I just go to Hope Boulevard, that's when I'm documenting that fake sun then being on Hope Boulevard. And if I travel to Fontana, then that fake sun outright departure from staying at Ontario Town Square, like I'm documenting when it's moving east to be over the OVITT Family Community Library, and it's remaining over that OVITT Family Community Library as I walk out in the afternoon and I show you that homosexual predators are stalking with the state of California in the bathroom of that OVITT Family Community Library, and the demon-possessed are engaging in criminal surveillance inside of that OVITT Family Community Library, and it includes the mentally ill who are demon-possessed, gang stalking as employees at that OVITT Family Community Library, which is the purpose for having that supernatural and what is obvious crime scene as it is going to be prosecuted in federal court as a matter of science regarding criminal surveillance by the state of California at the OVITT Family Community Library. The entity's engaging in this at what is it's currently 9:17 a.m. The fake sun, I'm documenting the latest image of that fake sun as I'm documenting a population sharing in public corruption and criminal surveillance of an American citizen, that it is also keeping the evidence against itself under surveillance, which is relevant to the prosecution of this public entity, at 9:11 a.m. at 224 North Euclid Avenue in Ontario, California. And then you are mindful of things such as the Route 66 show, where at this same 224 North Euclid Avenue, a performance is the malicious guise of the pattern of conduct. In the same way, the landscaper in the background is a malicious guise of the pattern of conduct, and it's all happening under what is a fake sun, where you are aware of what is public corruption, which is threatening the life of an American citizen. And this is what American citizens are subject to, monitoring, which is demonic. And those who are mentally ill, meaning they are demon-possessed, and that is affecting their behavior, their decision-making, their lack of reasoning, the delusional behavior, what the entity is doing in the face of evidence, what the entity is doing before the federal government, what the entity is doing before a public audience. It's on the internet. Everyone is watching. And the entity is engaging in no secret criminal act against me under any circumstances. And is literally teaching you, as I expose this, how criminal monitoring is operated in the United States amongst a corrupt government, how public corruption occurs, the illusions that you're presented with, okay? And so that's relevant to the people of the state that I'm documenting. And those are just license plates. The entity is gang stalking. Pauliana is gang stalking. The Ontario City Hall is a facilitating venue. All right. This is the entity that's engaging in what is the pattern of conduct at the University of Laverne College of Law. It's a gang stalking corrupt institution, engaging in criminal surveillance and having the nerve to be an institution where they are claiming to have some sort of instruction in the law while they are on the wrong side of the law, engaging in criminal conduct simultaneously. And that is just a picture regarding the corruption that is exposed upon criminal monitoring by the U.S. government. Okay, it's currently 9:19 a.m. It is still Tuesday, September 23rd, 2025, and this is P.O.C. These are homosexual predators stalking in the bathroom on behalf of the Ontario Police
as the entity is keeping a fake son. This is surveillance that's underway inside of a bathroom. These are sex offenders. This is P.O.C. Bringing in children that they also engage in pedophilia with, to engage in sexual violence with, and literally stalking by following into the bathroom. Engineered light is in here. Engineered light is in the bathroom. The fake sun is over the building, and the entity is gang stalking by planes and helicopters and pacing like psychopaths with impossible light outside. The demons come inside with children as activity creation, okay? And it is no mystery when pedophiles are engaged in sexual violence with children as well. This is P.O.C. This is OVITT Family Community Library that's engaged in sexual violence. It's not a family community. It's a facilitating venue. The entity is engaged in what is sexual violence by stalking in the bathroom on behalf of the police as well. This is P.O.C. And what is pathetic is that they're all in here stalking. They're only in here to engage in stalking. Okay, so you pinch your child, you spiritually attack your kid, you tell them no or something, you get them crying in the bathroom, you're monitoring my vagina. This is what, and this is under the fake sun. This is P.O.C. And that's a pedophile making loud noise while she's stalking in the path, monitoring my vagina. P.O.C. This is the Ontario police that was stalking at the 7-Eleven, stalking in the women's restroom. That's the entity that's being disbanded, okay? That loud crashing noise is because a pedophile is listening to the truth as she is stalking another woman and monitoring that woman's vagina. Okay? That's the pattern of conduct, a whole entity, including Sean Thrasher, monitoring my genitalia in the bathroom. And he's going to prison, P.O.C. So just understand and recognize the reality of what I'm documenting. These are predators that are just like you wouldn't want a male chasing you into a bathroom and to stalk you and be around you while you're disrobing and engaging in what is paying close attention to you, monitoring you, stalking you while you're doing things concerning your genitalia. That's what the entity that is demon-possessed and homosexual engaging in. They're doing so in the women's restroom with the demons that are in the male restroom, engaging in stalking in relevant position. And all of that library is engaged in what is stalking in the path, and all concentration is on my genitalia. That's also why the demons maintain impossible light inside of this bathroom. That's why they maintain amplified noise inside of this bathroom, because Mike Lorenz and Alan D. Wapner and Michael Gerken, who are engaged in gang stalking with planes and helicopters and fire trucks, are engaging in surveilling my vagina, while homosexuals that would engage in stalking a woman and monitoring her vagina come into, as the entity, the women's restroom to maintain noise. And they also react to it when they maintain loud, audible noise with simultaneity to my calling them what they are, homosexual predators. And this is literally what the entity did at 12 o'clock this morning, stalking me at the 7-Eleven, and the entity is stalking in a restroom where there is no legitimate interest and there is no appropriate level of surveillance by the United States government. This is the United States. This is P.O.C. This is a sex offense. And Sean Thrasher, again, engaging in kidnapping. Criminal definition. It's already on the record what he was doing while he's been monitoring my vagina. This is P.O.C. It is 12:06 p.m. That's bathroom monitoring. They're on surveillance cameras engaging in what is criminal activity, and it's a matter of science regarding the sex offenders that are the people of the state engaging in what is gang stalking in a private space, which is sexually motivated, predatory, and demented behavior. The demons that are stalking with impossible light then enter into a bathroom, stalking with light. That's what the engineer light inside of the bathroom is. It's an iteration of the same pattern of conduct. And you bring in your children to engage in monitoring my vagina. This is what pedophiles that are engaging in sexual activity with children come in and commit sexual violence with them as well. This is P.O.C. It's 12:07 p.m. This is mental illness that's going to be addressed when the entity is prosecuted. License 9MOX151. These are sex offenders monitoring with the sex offender Jason Fields. Okay, the federal government, the entity has hundreds and hundreds of people keeping me under surveillance in a bathroom. These are sex offenders. 8XVU131, engaging in surveillance outside of the bathroom, inside of the bathroom, on my way out of the bathroom, including the Ontario International Airport that you'll see flying over the venue, keeping me under surveillance, including my vagina. This is what is the part of the detail of gang stalking me. And this is also why, again, Jason Fields in particular, these sex offenders are never coming into my presence. The federal government is a sex offender, but I want to be clear, the particular predator, Jason Fields, is never going. Anybody that is a part of this case, you're a sex offender. But Jason Fields is never coming to my presence. Anybody that I have to communicate with, they're the same status. The entity's engaged in what is an ongoing experiment, sitting up and watching me. And there's not going to be any applause for that. However, I have to a certain degree, deal with the sex offenders, which is what I am single-handedly exposing. Okay, this is the federal government's criminal conduct. What the city of Ontario is doing, what the state of California is doing, the federal government's criminal conduct, and it's a violent sex offender. Okay, hundreds of people engaging in surveillance in the bathroom. The police department that knows what my vagina looks like. The entity putting my nudity on the internet. And this is, again, something that the entity is regularly engaging in at the OVITT Family Community Library. And then you're talking about all the acts of obstruction of justice that I've documented, like what Sean Thrasher, a sex offender, has engaged in, so that sex offenders like the Ontario Police can continuously engage in what is keeping my vagina under surveillance. And then you have these demons, Owens, and these gang stalkers that go to 7-Eleven at 12 o'clock in the morning. They're stalking me. They know what my genitalia looks like, okay? While they're engaged in what is gang stalking me at the 7-Eleven, and so does Jason Fields. These are sex offenders. And then they want to be looked at as though they're less than predators amongst women and children, for example, even other men, because Jason Isaac Fields gets on all fours. He's a homosexual. He's a predator, period. Okay, he's a threat to raping men, women, children. He's a predator. He's got the mind of a sex offender, period. And he's engaging in what is keeping my vagina under surveillance still, and so is the federal government. I want to be clear, fascinated with my genitalia, fascinated with it. These are predators, and that's the spirit of Satan. That's not some scientific study. That's not some fascination, some worship of the Lord God. That's a predator. The demons that are stalked with impossible light, those are demons keeping my vagina under surveillance, every single last one of them, including the ones with newborn babies, like you see under the fake sun, including the ones that are going in the bathroom, gang stalking, fascinated with my genitalia. Hundreds and hundreds of people keeping my vagina under surveillance know what I look like in the nude. And I have never I've never given anybody a picture of my nude. I've never done any of that. And that's the reality of the sex offense by the entity. The reality of the sex offenders, the Ontario Police Department, who engage in referring to the municipal code when they're engaged in what is knowledge about what my vagina, what my backside looks like. And they keep a straight face while they talk about things that they don't even have authority under the law, while they're gang stalking me. I'm talking about the sex offenders of the Ontario Police. And this is the entity that's engaging in what is that sex offense. Jason Fields will never, this is a violent sex offender who is sharing that same demonic spirit, that same criminal activity, that same sexual obsession, that same predatory mindset, that same threat to my life and safety as everyone else. He in particular will never, ever come into my presence. But I want to be clear, the entirety of the entity, there is no hero here. The federal government is the predator. The federal government is the criminal. The federal government is only forced with providing what is a measure of justice because I am myself forcing it to because of the P.O.C. But for the P.O.C., they would all be still engaging in what is keeping me under surveillance. The entity would have me kidnapped somewhere. I would still be in a facility. The entity would be engaging in what is studying my nude body and doing weird experimentation with me, and you would know nothing about it. Okay, drugging me, and the entity engaging in all manner of weird, demonic, sexually motivated experimentation, because that's exactly what psychopaths like Jason Fields and the demons that are stalking me in bathrooms, stalking me everywhere up and down the street, stalking me while I'm sitting at a bus stop, that's what they're interested in, and that's what they want to do. And they want to stalk me every moment of the day, make sure I don't go anywhere, make sure that they're aware of how many times I'm breathing every 60 seconds, make sure that I'm blinking and which direction I'm looking when I'm swallowing my water from my water bottle. Like, that's the level of stalking that the demon possessed are engaged in. And it includes this predator, Jason Fields, okay? This is an entity that's engaging in that conduct, and the stalking with lie conduct is letting you know about the predators that they all are. The entity that's stalking me with impossible light is the entity that's letting you know their identity about those who are monitoring my vagina. They are sex offenders while they're stalking with impossible light. They're sex offenders while they're stalking under the fake sun. They're sex offenders while they're stalking as a city. The entity kept the fake sun over the OVITT Family Community Library, and Paul Leon is very much engaged in and has knowledge of the details surrounding the surveillance of my vagina. And it's something that he will never speak of, but it's something that is conclusive, and it's a fact. He's a sex offender, and he's a part of the population of those that are obsessively consumed with what is my vagina between my legs. And that's an inhumane violation, a sexual violation by the government, for which Jason Fields will never, ever be in my presence, ever. This is a demon who should already be in federal prison, and if he's not, that's where he's going. This is somebody that's never going to be in, like, sitting. You're not even going to be sitting in court next to me. This is somebody that poses an unlawful threat, and he will never again, under the law, on the outside of a federal prison cell, be permitted to threaten me by even being in my presence. That's what I mean. Okay, this is an entity that's engaging in that pattern of conduct, and I want to be clear that they are violent sex offenders in doing so, and I want to recite the license plates of the demons engaging in surveillance while I'm inside of the OVITT Family Community Library. Every single person inside of that library is engaged in what is keeping me under surveillance while I walk into the restroom, while I go into a stall, while I disrobe, while I engage in personal and private activity. And so is sex offenders like Jason Fields, engaged in that for years, by the way. While doing the creepiest, having sex with my mother as well, and also engaged in what is placing cameras in my home and placing cameras all around me to watch me engage in what is live my life, watching every moment that I spend with no clothes on, looking and studying my vagina unbeknownst to me. And so do these sex offenders that are gang stalking. Okay, this is the entity that's doing so, and these sex offenders are gang stalking in concert with the government. The government is the one that is sanctioning sexual violence. The government is the one that's going to be prosecuted for it as well. And the government is the one that's going to be speaking of a case that they're going to prosecute against the itself. And the government is also going to be the one that I'm going to unapologetically speak the exact same truth. I'm not going to change it, and the federal government is not a hero. They're not investigating. They're engaged in what is targeting my vagina. That's the level of surveillance that I'm subject to. And this is because of this weird demonic fascination with me and the entity that's engaged in what is violating the human rights of someone that has equal rights under the law, okay? But because of some sort of fascination with who I am, the entities engaged in what is inhumane levels of sexual violence, like hundreds and hundreds of people keeping you under surveillance in a bathroom and knowing what you're doing in a bathroom and keeping cameras on you in a bathroom. Because that's what they're doing at every location, every hotel room, every public venue like OVITT Family Community Library. The bathroom is a public space. It's not a private space. The entities engaged in surveillance, and the entities engaged in what is surveilling me in particular. I'm targeted amongst what is surveillance that's not even supposed to be happening in the United States with regard to the Constitution, my constitutional rights. But even more than that, I'm being targeted amongst what is unlawful surveillance. And they are targeting things like my genitalia. Engaging in psychopathic and perverted and extreme acts like stalking outside of the bathroom door to make sure I go in the bathroom, making sure somebody is there inside and outside of the bathroom, on the opposite side of the walls while I'm inside of the bathroom, making sure persons are maintaining presence all around me wherever I go, including the bathroom. And this is the sexual violence that, again, this predator, Jason Fields, he belongs in federal prison, and he belongs to stay in federal prison. All right, it licensed 9LBL912. This is a sex offender engaging in surveillance, doing so with the government, engaging in the perpetual sex offense, keeping my genitalia under surveillance, with the sex offenders that are stalking inside and all around the bathroom, as what is the OVITT Family Community Library's engagement in keeping me under surveillance, including in the bathrooms inside of that venue. 6TTE397 50022K3. And the entity is engaging in the OVITT Family Community Library, which is the City of Ontario. That's 215 East C Street, Ontario, California, 91764. The entity is engaging in what is at 537 North Euclid Avenue, the ongoing criminal surveillance. These are sex offenders, and this is I'm going to prosecute the government as a sex offender. I'm going to prosecute the entity as a terrorist, keeping me under surveillance, and also conspiring my murder while sexually obsessing over me and doing things like keeping my vagina under surveillance, monitoring my vagina, monitoring my private activity as not just one person, but as an entity, a public entity, keeping a population engaged in keeping me under surveillance in that private state, in that private space. And that's speaking to a demon-possessed population that is indeed sexually fixated on the one whom they are gang stalking as a demon-possessed population. The mental illness is that which is also predatory. The predatory mind state is relevant to that mental illness, and it is exactly why, informing why predators like Jason Fields will never be in my presence. And outside, all he's doing is threatening me, but he's never going to actually be in my presence. And because he's engaged in threatening me, that's also why he will never be in my presence. It is currently 9:17 p.m. This is documentation of the sex offense committed by the United States government. This is P.O.C. It's Tuesday, September 23rd, 2025.